This movie is the definition of indie filmmaking. It's coming out next year, but I got to see it at Monster Fest, and it was such a weird little mix of genres, right? It was one of the more interesting films at Monster Fest because I was like, you're making a what? So this is an Australian outback period piece crossed with a gangster film rolled up in a killer bull shark movie. The director, Matthew Holmes, and writer Gregory Moss, they set out to apparently answer two questions. One, why the fuck would you go back in the water if you know a killer shark was there? And two, why the fuck isn't anyone using bull sharks? And honestly, I think they did I think they did a pretty good job of answering both those questions. I will talk about the development hell this film went through first, but I've got to talk about the fact that we finally get a fucking bull shark movie. Hollywood is obsessed with great whites and makos to the point where it doesn't make any fucking sense, right? I love sharks. I'm a big shark fan. But, you know, in movies like Under Paris, they have a mako shark that swims up a river. They would rather resort to having to explain sci-fi-like evolutionary behavior to come up with a reason why the mako can survive in rivers than just use a fucking bull shark, which is not only able to do exactly that, but is known to chomp on humans from time to time. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why. It's always irked me. It's so weird. Because like if I walk out my front door right now, I can walk to a river that has bull sharks in it. That's how close they are to human populations. They collide with us all the time. So I'm glad we are getting a decent bull shark film. Finally. Now this movie was apparently hell to make because it was ironically rescued from the jaws of a watery development grave. It has a micro budget, and they went to make this movie next to a lagoon next to the Murray River. And about a week into filming, the worst floods that have happened in that area in 30 years happened, and they had to stop production and evacuate. Matthew Holmes and the crew scrambled to find another location in Queensland where it's a bit drier, but they couldn't find one. So they called up the production company and basically said, we're going to have to can the movie. Like, we can't fucking make this film. As they were leaving Goondiwindi, 20 minutes later, they saw a campsite with a lagoon next to it and went, that's the fucking perfect spot. So they had to ring up Studio Canal and then cancel the cancellation. So, and that severely impacted the budget. If you were working with a tiny budget, you can imagine a couple of weeks to do that, fly all these people up. It would have been an absolute fucking nightmare. So, you know, I think he said they only had 15 days to shoot a shark movie in the water. That's a fucking nothing. Man, I had to make like weird little science documentary films, and I had like 4 weeks to make them in uni, and they were shit. So this looks pretty fucking good. And what they've come out with is one of the most interesting indie shark movies I've seen in probably a while. Like, it's set in 1940s, right? A gang of crims, I'm talking Al Capone, 1940s crims. They've robbed a bank and are fleeing with a car full of gold bars. The car hits a pothole on the escape route and careens into a river. To retrieve the gold, they hire a team of divers from the Sea Dog Diving Company. The team is run by like a World War II Navy vet named Ernie, played by Arthur Angel, and includes a woman named Clara, played by Hermoione Corfield, and an Aboriginal Australian guy named Jimmy, played by Jacob Jr. Nayinggul. And, you know, I don't know if you know much about the 1940s, but not fucking good. Not fucking good for women and Indigenous Australians. In fact, still not very good for Indigenous Australians today. But the crew crack out their old-timey diving suits and start retrieving the car. While they're doing that, they become the target of a supremely aggressive female bull shark. Bad news for them is if they don't get the gold, the gangsters are going to kill them. If they go in the water, the bull shark will. Therein lies why the fuck you would keep going back into the water when there's a killer shark. Now, if you go into this movie expecting Jaws, you'll be a sad panda. However, if you love the practical effects that Jaws did, you may find a lot to like in this movie. I asked the FX designer, Stephen Boyle, how much of this movie was practical, because the sharks look fucking good. I was like, God damn, these are good looking sharks. He said 99% of it, which was really annoying because we had to make a lot of puppets. So what they did was they made shark puppets of very varying scales, and they shot them in the water with the actors and stuff to make it look like they were way bigger, which would have been hard as fuck to do. There is a scene where a shark is in a car, and apparently that is CGI because they couldn't get the puppets to move that way in the water with their weight, but everything else was practical. It also makes sense why the shark wasn't janky as fuck like a lot of the stuff I've seen, like a lot of the shark movies on Netflix and stuff, because it's practical effects. It's showed very sparingly because it's shot in a muddy river, which makes complete sense because that's where bull sharks live. So while this movie is more action-adventure than horror, there are some pretty goddamn good gore effects and shark effects considering how tiny the budget is. The interplay of characters Ernie, Clara, and Jimmy actually gave me big The Mummy vibes. I think it's probably because of the time period and the personality of Clara. She is very Evelyn, obviously without the Syrian sexuality of Evelyn, or fucking anyone in The Mummy. That's one of the sexiest movies of all time. But she's still a cool British book nerd. Jimmy's a fucking sick character. I really like Jimmy. You see him, he takes a lot of racist shit in this movie, and you see him take a stand to the gangsters at one point, and what happens is pretty fucking cool. I was like, fuck yeah, Jimmy, feed him. Loved that. Arthur Angel plays a character we have seen before. Actually, you know what? He reminds me of the pilot. You know the old pilot in The Mummy? I'm talking about the blimp guy in Mummy Returns, but the old pilot in The Mummy. Big him vibes. And he does a great job, as does Jake Ryan, who plays the main gangster. He's a very serviceable gangster. I could see him in Underbelly or something like that. So yeah, the acting's fine. The biggest problem I see this film having is its audience. At the start, I thought, oh, fuck yeah, this is going to be perfect to watch with like early teens. But then I think the gore and the racism might somewhat nip that shit in the bud. So... And it's sort of like, it's quite adventure-y, but is a bit too much of a shark film to appeal to adventure fans, but maybe the characters are too, in true adventure film sense, the characters are literally just, these are all the good guys, these are all the bad guys, which I know sometimes doesn't appeal to a lot of horror fans. They want like morally ambiguous characters, so I'm hoping that the foot in each camp helps them, not hinders them. Also, you do have to suspend, while the production sets, designs, the diving suits, the outfits, that's all beautifully done. The cars, everything. I love it. So good. But you do have to suspend disbelief a little bit with like some of the underwater communication technology that's used in this film. That reason being, if they'd used actual technology that was in the 1950s, it would have sounded like shit and would have made for a bad film. So I get why they were like, we have to sort of zhuzh this up a bit and make it a lot better quality than it probably would have been. Some of the actors in this too, they're just starting out in their careers, so some of the delivery at points is a bit shaky and makes it feel a little bit like a Lifetime movie. At points, not all the way, but at points. But once again, this is a micro-budget indie film made in Goondiwindi, so there are going to be some fucking rough edges. If you like indie creature films though, especially shark ones, this will probably be one of the most interesting ones. It's definitely one of the most interesting setups to come out in years. It's better quality than stuff like fucking Shark Night or Bull Shark, like the movie called Bull Shark, Ozark Sharks, the Sharknado sequels. Like, it's better than them, right? It's probably not as fun as the original Sharknado, but it's, the shark scenes are better than pretty much all of those films because they use practical effects and fleeting glances. So that's a big fucking plus in my book. I recommend watching this if you love shark movies. There you go. If you love shark movies, this is a pretty decent shark movie. Go watch it. If you want to see decent shark practical effects, if you're a practical effects junkie, The shark is practical effects in this. 99% of it. There is one scene. All the rest, practical effects and puppets. Very cool. If you like adventure movies like The Mummy or Indiana Jones, obviously without the budget of those, you know, this could be up your alley. Although, that being said, the shark looks way better than this fucking Scorpion King did in The Mummy Returns. So, you know, sometimes it's not all about budget. I don't recommend watching this if you want a straight up scare fest. This is not even scary. Even though the effects are well done, it's not scary. Just a fun little shark film. If you want a story with twists, super predictable. This film is super predictable. It's fun, but it is predictable. You're like, okay, I see where this is going. Yep, cool. Yep, they hit that beat. Yep, they hit that beat. Yep, they hit that beat. So it's not like a... Don't go in expecting M. Night Shyamalan twists or any of that shit. It is predictable. But it honestly is a bit of fun. I'll probably show this to my younger nephews. I think they'll probably get a kick out of this film, to be honest. Especially given the fact we live right near the Brisbane River. I don't mind a good shark film. Jaws and Deep Blue Sea being my favourites, closely followed by Open Water. Obviously, this doesn't have the budget to compete with most of those, but I have to say this was a pretty enjoyable watch, and it's nice to see a shark film set in a river. I really like that. I thought that was fucking great. If you like this movie, I highly recommend the 2007 film Rogue. It's an Aussie creature feature that doesn't get enough love. Actually, after I watched this, I went and watched Rogue again because I fucking love it. Yes, the CGI at the end of Rogue is pretty fucking rough, but all creature features around that time in the early 2000s used pretty rough CGI. It's got Sam Worthington and John Jarrett. Yes, Mick Taylor is in this from Wolf Creek. And it's about an American travel journalist on assignment in Australia in the Northern Territory who basically gets trapped by with a tour group by a giant saltwater croc that wants to hunt them. The floodwaters are rising. They're running out of time. It's fucking cool. It's a goddamn good croc movie. So fucking Aussie. It's such an Aussie movie. Another movie that has a similar vibe to this one, but much better in quality, let's be honest, is the 1996 film The Ghost in the Darkness. This film is a fucking masterpiece. It features Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer just after his Tombstone Doc Holliday role, which is one of my favourite roles of anyone ever. It's about two hunters in the early 1900s who are brought in to kill two man-eating lions that are based on lions in real life. They have a whole Wikipedia page. These lions were basically rampaging and killing railroad workers in Kenya. It's a movie my brother and I have watched the absolute hell out of as kids. It's so tense. It really is the ultimate man versus beast movie. And even if I hate trophy hunting, which I do, I fucking love this movie. It's so goddamn good. I just love it. The Ghost in the Darkness, absolute banger of a film. As always, thanks for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow for another review. Once again, if you want to follow along with the Spooktober Watchfest, I am doing a movie I haven't seen before and reviewing it every single day of October. So if you want to keep up with that, subscribe, hit the bell. That is the easiest way. I love the fuck out of you all. Peace.